Twins are very special, but most parents on hearing the news that they will be having twins experience a range of emotions, from joy, elation, often to anxiety about the pregnancy, the risks with the babies and for the mother, and then parenting two little ones. Today, Lisa and I are going to be discussing how to help give advice and some useful information for parents. Lisa is a mother of identical twin girls and is from Twins, Tiaras and Tantrums. Lisa, how did you feel when you were first told that you were expecting twins?
Pretty terrified, yeah, very scared. I had an inkling, but yeah, nothing prepares you for the shock.
Were there any particular concerns you had about the delivery and how your pregnancy had been monitored? Because of course it's very different with twins.
Yeah, I mean, this is a personal thing because I was expecting identicals. I was very concerned about the twin-to-twin transfusion. I think that's mainly for identicals, isn't it?
Well, that's absolutely right. And in fact, we call them technically monochorionic because they were sharing one placenta. But you can actually have twins who each have their own placenta and also identical, which sometimes is not always understood. But you're absolutely right. If they are sharing one placenta, then we know they will be identical, but they're also monitored very closely because with the joint placenta there can be complications with that.
Yes.
And what about your delivery? Was that discussed with you? Did you have any concerns, or was there further information you would have found helpful?
Well, I was told straight away that I would have to have a caesarean, which really worried me. I didn't want a caesarean at all, so I spoke to my doctor at the time, and he said it was fine for me to have a natural birth as long as I was in theatre and as long as I'd had an epidural. So once that was in my mind, I was a lot calmer and it helped a lot. Yeah.
Yes, and that again, it's one of the big discussions to have. I think every twin pregnancy is individual, and we now have consistent advice in the NICE guideline in the UK as to how pregnancy should be managed, and it sets out when scans should be done so that we can monitor the growth of the babies, and if they are monochorionic like yours, how that should be monitored as well. But it is quite usual, if they do share a placenta, to think very carefully about whether they should be delivered by caesarean section, but there are lots of factors that the doctors would take into account before advising you about that. What about the unit? Because that can be quite a shock. These neonatal units with the babies on monitors with lots of bleeps, lots of tubes in an incubator, I think is a very, very different environment, obviously, and can be a huge shock for parents. So one of the things that I think is very advisable, and we try to do, is prepare parents that the fact that the babies may be born early and may go into a unit. How did you feel about that? Did you know very much about what it would be like?
From what I remember, they hadn't actually told me anything, so I went down there and I walked into this little room with these two little cots with all the bleeping and the wires, and I remember just thinking, oh my God, they're going to die, when actually they just needed keeping warm and being fed, and that was it. And it wasn't until one of the nurses came into the room and saw how upset I was, actually said, no, they're fine, they're just, we have to keep them warm, and you know, they needed feeding through a tube.
It's, you know, very important. We make every effort to make sure that parents who are expecting twins are aware that their babies may need to go into the unit, even just for a few days like yours. And it's very valuable to be able to either, sometimes it's possible to visit neonatal units, and the staff may be able to arrange that, but because we have to be very careful of infection, it's not always possible to go in. So some places do a virtual tour, and in other cases, the other thing that I think works very well is some of the antenatal classes that are run specifically for multiple births. One of the neonatal nurses will come down and just explain to the mothers what would happen if the babies go into the unit. But the other things that I find we constantly try to support mothers with giving advice about are, I think, some of the things that we've discussed, particularly, first of all, making sure that you have as much information as possible about the pregnancy and don't hesitate to ask. I think the other really critical thing is think well ahead about what sort of help might be available. And often things like somebody to help with the cleaning, the shopping, the washing, probably ironing can go by the board, apart from absolutely essentials when you've got twins, but to do things that mean that you don't have to worry about the home and can concentrate on the babies, particularly if you're trying, you know, with feeding and getting breastfeeding established and getting into a routine. Getting into a routine with them, with the feeding, with how you organise the bathing every day, if you've got some help, getting some help in. And then most particularly, the times that you're going to go out, because it is so important to get out with the babies, and it's very easy to be isolated and to feel that it's too much effort to go out, which means that you can feel a little bit isolated. And as you know, when you do go out, it's probably the best of both worlds, but two-edged, because you get an awful lot of attention. But it does make you feel very special as well, because people take such an interest in you. So making plans to have buggies that are easy to get into the car and out of the car and so on. Lisa, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found this information and the discussion useful, and thank you very much for watching.